Hello and welcome to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans, Level 2. This is a continuation of the lesson about planetary ascension and the refinery of light, refinery of personality characteristics that is the solar system. So in the previous segment, I went over several concepts, one of which is you are personally involved in a biofeedback loop with the sun or solar consciousness involving food and chlorophyll and your intestines as a refinery of energy, and also that there exist in a relatively unnatural state, lower vibrational thought entities who desire to feed off of food that is of a lower vibration than love. And love being defined as the equitable exchange of energy between two or more. So literally, you have like an energy being juggled or sent back and forth between these two beings. And about 10 or 12,000 years ago, when the human genetic code was degraded, these interlopers came and they would steal the energy, and instead of having it all flow beautifully back and forth, some of it became siphoned off. And instead what was created was an entire realm and false exchange of energy, an entire false economy in the interstice or the moving membrane between worlds, where many beings of consciousness set up camp and did not want to change or move since that era. And we are talking thousands of years, tens of thousands of years, a time scale that is unimaginable to most people in the human form. So you have these beings that have existed for thousands of years. They don't exist by eating their own food. And I've likened them to viruses in the past. They're not like bacteria, but they're like viruses in the sense that they do not have access to being able to consume their own food directly, nor do viruses. Viruses rely upon the food that the host has ingested. The difference between bacteria and viruses is that whereas like the gut bacteria in here might rely upon the food that you as a host ingest, the gut bacteria don't hijack your DNA. Not so with a virus. Virus comes along and actively enters your cell and says, don't listen to your own cellular program, take on my cellular program and make more of me. That is really different. And because it's happening on a genetic level, what we're talking about is the level of light, pure light and ideas. So on a physical realm level, viruses are, these little beings that make you sick. But on a non-physical realm level, viruses are beings that are feeding off of the energies of the living. Now, these beings that exist in the interstices here, I have described them in the past as farmers, farming humanity for certain exudations. And the exudations are lower vibrational emotions such as sadness, anger, hatred, grief, some of the more lugubrious or denser emotions. And what we're really talking about now, when I tell you about the future and planetary ascension and where we are headed as a collective, and meaning many of us as individuals achieving a higher vibrational state and no longer relying upon plants as intermediaries for us to ingest light and beginning to ingest light through our third eye and ingesting directly all of that consciousness, all of that nourishment, all of those ideas, and begin to emanate only high quality ideas. If we lived in a realm that was only populated by people who emanated high quality ideas, these beings that exist in the interstices would starve. They would have no energy left to suck away. It's like saying if everyone was perfectly toned and did not have any excess adipose tissue, there would be nothing left for these beings to feed upon. And I've explained in the past the analogy to you and adipose tissue is your ego. Either you have a lean ego that is very much in tune with your core persona and who you really are, or you have a distorted ego, with big, huge deposits of unresolved guilt or shame or remorse or aspects in which you did not love yourself. And this is not meant to cast aspersions on anyone who has a larger body size at all. This is like very neutral to say. And sometimes the fatty deposits can be on internal organs. So it's not only the adipose tissue of the body, but it is very neutral to say that when there's excessive buildup through here, it is not that the person is a bad person at all. It is that they have unresolved emotional issues. Unresolved, undigested orange energy is stored up. And also there's no judgment, because there's the reason of why is that in existence? What is the reason for it? Why has this energy been stored up here almost as ballast? Ballast, like when ships or hot air balloons are in motion and they need to either speed up or rise higher, they drop their ballast. So for many people in their lives, when they're ready to really make a life change, they drop their ballast. They lose weight. They change their eating habits, become more loving of themselves, and lose weight. And when I say loving, loving means accepting. Loving also means that you feed yourself with energy. Like you give energy to others and you also give energy to yourself. So loving yourself can also mean you make different food choices that are more loving. It can also mean you choose more exercise. And in that sense, like maybe you don't do a lot of, like maybe there were responsibilities like, I'm sorry, I can't, put myself out for you because I need to go here and do exercise and take good care of myself. Many people focus their energy on giving energy to others without enough self-care. So when I say love yourself, what that looks like as an action word can be not only eating less or not only eating better, but also making different life choices. Or maybe it's changing careers. Maybe it's like, oh, this career sitting behind a desk just makes me be very unhealthy, and a career, if I were walking around or more active, is a much healthier career for me. And it's also likely that if people eat out of emotional reasons, and if a person has overconsumed excessive calories due to emotional reasons, then when they actually do begin to engage in exercise and break down or, transmit these energies back from a solid into an energetic form, then they often release those negative emotions. And this can be seen on some of the weight loss TV shows. If you have ever watched an episode that is about personal transformation, it's not just about changing their bodies through, changing their caloric ingestion. It is also about changing their emotional landscape, why they consume what they consume, why they overconsume, and why they choose not to be active and burn it off. So now we're talking about the eon that is about to pass, or that is in the process of passing. The eon of these beings here being stuck, being unresolved, consciousness that is in storage. And that now, let's talk about when a person goes on a pilgrimage. What is that like? Or many people experience this when they are engaged in training for a marathon or ultra endurance sport. That when you are doing all of that, caloric expending physical exertion, not only are you burning off your fat reserves, but you're finally resolving and releasing those stored emotions. And this is valuable even in a person who is not excessively overweight. It is like just saying you're taking things out of the pantry. You're taking things out of long-term storage and resolving them, and then making room for new things to come in. And that is what people do with their consciousness. You can let go of baggage. You can let go of so-and-so said a mean thing that hurt me, so-and-so touched me in a wrong way, so-and-so was unfair to me, or life was unfair to me, or even things like that you don't like what you did to someone else, you feel sorrow or regret. All of that can be burned off calorically. And it doesn't just have to be burned off through pilgrimage exercises, like a lot of walking or a lot of cardiovascular, activity. Although that's very important. The cardiovascular is all about breathing, adding energy, adding oxygen. Oxygen is a form of solvent. It helps to resolve these stuck energy, but also it's about consciousness, focusing your consciousness on those things and loving them, because love is another form of universal solvent. And love really means I keep my heart open. Love really means when these insights come up of what these emotions came from, or like if you were hitting mile 19 of running a marathon, and all of a sudden you had an emotional realization or a breakthrough, or you felt like crying, or maybe you felt joyous and you felt happy. What's really happening is that you have resolved some of this stuck energy, and it then has allowed your energy and vitality to flow anew into that place. So the stuck energy in your life would be an emotional experience, a negative emotional experience around here, around here, around here. The stuck energy of the universe, of the body of the universe, is these beings here that have been labeled as demons, these beings here that have been labeled as evil beings. They are the stuck energy of the universe. The universe is truly green. The universe is truly love. All this is beautiful love energy. And when that energy is in an appropriate state of flow, that equilibrium flow, that is love. That is perfect. But when there are blockages that are preventing that flow, that is when energy builds up and creates situations like this. So let's say you've only ever been fat. You've only ever been overweight. You have never experienced what it is like to be a lean, mean, energetic machine. And I would say that the equivalent of that would be like the energy that you ingest is equal to the energy that you expend. In some cultures, that is very normal. In some cultures, being excessively overweight or overweight in any way is almost unheard of. I'm talking about cultures where it might be that there are an extreme scarcity or extreme lack of abundance, or that people are just incredibly active. And some of these are from the quote-unquote undeveloped or third world, but some of them are not. Some of them are from industrialized cultures where people have a different cultural attitude about food and activity than the culture that I'm presently familiar with, which is that of the United States. And many times the reason why people eat excessively is because they are eating down their feelings, eating down their negative emotions. They're using food as a way of medicating or denying their bad feelings, because eating food gives you a very temporary emotional lift. And that's what that is. That temporary lift is like saying, oh, look, here's energy, look, chocolate, ice cream, sugar, look, that makes you happy, happy, happy. But it is a very temporary energy. And then what really happens is, when I talked about ballast, talking about things that slow you down. So all of this ballast here means that this person, instead of being in perfect alignment like this, and then the flow of energy is flowing so nicely through them, it means that this person is actually more like this. And instead of energy flowing through them nicely, it gets kind of jumbled up and kind of flows around and then kind of jumbled up over here. This is lack of flow of consciousness in the universe. This is the sun sending out emanations that are not immediately seamlessly returned back to the sun. And so here we have these beings for centuries, millennia, an eon, cutting off humanity from its divine connection to solar consciousness. And this lesson is all about the solar system. Every planet of this solar system being part of this refinery of consciousness. Why do these beings exist? Why do these meanies exist? Why do they want to suck off of others? Why they're like energy vampires, which is why we created the myth of vampires, so we could understand their motivations. Why do these beings want to exist? Well, they want to continue to escape having to pay for their deeds. So they got into this realm here a long, long time ago, if you can even talk about time, because we're talking about a hyperspace reality where time doesn't really exist, but they've been occupying that place for a very long time. And they have accumulated a very large backlog, or very large emotional backlog, of things that they need to resolve. Because I've spoken about these beings, we've called them demons or whatever, how they harm and farm humans in order to get negative emotional exudations. Well, that is the type of thing that is a no-no and must be resolved. When I say a no-no, what I'm talking about is cause and effect. The universe is all about cause and effect. The universe is incredibly loving. What you send out, it's going to come back to you, right? Cause and effect. And when the universe is a seamless machine, a seamless continuum that gives you an immediate feedback on what you send out, then you learn the best. I think if you have ever had a dog, you know this to be true. If you if the dog makes a mess and you punish it immediately, the dog gets it. If the dog makes a mess and you punish it several days later, the dog does not understand, does not make a connection between what it sent out in the form of liquid or solid waste and what it is receiving in the form of, being hit or put in a crate or whatever. So this is the very same thing with many people that are living in human form right now on the earth, that are very disconnected. Many people who are living right now on earth are very disconnected from the sun and from the consequences of their own action. What they send out, they might not necessarily receive the feedback on that action until they're already dead. And then it is past relevance. You are no longer capable of acting. But of course, you got a lot of information for your next time around, but it's not very helpful on this time around. This is the value of having real-time communication and real-time feedback with your little feelers that are on Earth, and we are feelers for the sun. Same thing in life. If you are sending out negativity in the form of violence or harm or cruelty towards others or stealing as the way of, getting the resources that you need, and you never experience the biofeedback of the universe giving you back the sensation that those are ineffective tools towards getting the resources that you need or navigating human society with other beings, then you don't get a chance to actually learn. Well, the existence of these beings here, stuck in that hyperspace reality for so very long and not being resolved for so very long, means that the sun has not, or solar consciousness has not had an opportunity to evolve, has not had an opportunity to learn those lessons. When these lessons all are finally broadcast home to the sun and to the great galactic sun at the center of our galaxy, the great central sun, all of this, it all adds to the big picture. It illuminates everything. It makes it all come clear. So one of the reasons why is there so much iniquity in Earth society right now, everything that's going on here on Earth is unfair. How come these archons or lower vibrational but higher dimensional or extra dimensional beings, how can they even be here? How can they even exist? How can they even be in a position of power or influence? And the answer is all about galactic history, how the situation developed into its present form, and why would it develop into its present form? Because essentially all of the planets of the solar system, here's a planet, here's a planet, here's a planet, all of them are emanations of this central solar or stellar consciousness. And all of these planets represent energy at a different point in its evolution. So let's say this planet is a young planet and that person's acting like a baby. Like a child throwing a tantrum, or a violent baby that thinks that it can get what it wants by lashing out to others. And let's say this is an equally unevolved planet that thinks that it can get what it wants by being a victim and being passive and just allowing bad things to happen to it and then showing its boo-boo. These are different stages on the journey of consciousness as it is circulating around the sun, as it is being refined, and as it comes closer and closer to being re-refined to a state of divinity. So that state of divinity that we are being re-refined towards would be analogous to a lean, healthy physique that has a minimum amount of stored up fat or stored up emotional experiences and has a maximum amount of energy or consciousness available to it. So in terms of the personality characteristics that are being refined or paring away the adipose tissue of the universe, what we really come to the conclusion is that who we are on a true level, this true persona inside, the lean, mean person, is pure love. It is pure love. You are a being of pure love and nothing else. Anything else is a distortion, a mere perturbation in the field, like light moving through pebbled glass. It is just light being distorted on its path. Here's light, and it is moving on its path, And any of these lower vibrational emotions are really just distortions of light on that path. And eventually, now let's talk about heaven. Heaven is another one of these words that is mythologized, that has been used to define or describe with a lot of emotional language a place that is very real. In the same way that this would be analogous to hell, the interstices populated by demons, so too is there heaven. Heaven would be analogous to, wrong color, this central core persona, this central core timeline that goes infinitely in both directions. This is where you're coming from and this is where you're going to. This is this perfect tone of endlessness, energy moving on its journey. It can be moving back and forth this way, like here. It can be moving up and down this way. It can be moving endlessly in one direction, or endlessly in this direction, or endlessly in a big giant circle. But the point is, it is a frictionless, entropyless journey of consciousness. That is what infinity is. That is what love is. This is who you are. Energy flowing on your journey. This is who you're not. This is energy that is stuck on its journey and is preventing the proper flow of all of the rest of these, personality characteristics from going where they need to go. So I know that I've also spoken about how this energy is resolved. This energy that you really are not. First of all, you fully identify with your core persona. Fully identify with the loving being that you are and your loving, leaner, inner realm or inner personality. And when you love these beings. You love and accept them. You don't expect them to be anything other than what they are. They are very analogous to the character Gollum from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Twisted, decrepit, distorted versions of beings who were once shining and vibrant, but they no longer have the capacity to eat love, and they have become twisted, horrible creatures. The best thing that you can do for these creatures is to send them back to the central sun for processing. Send them back to the great source of consciousness that they came from. That means that they can't be here anymore. But these are like saying, leave your ancestral lands. But my people have been here forever. Yeah, they've been there for a long time, but that doesn't mean that this is where they're supposed to stay. Being here was a very unnatural situation, because I've already explained and described to you in many lessons how this is a flowing membrane. This is the flowing membrane of death. Death means your consciousness is being refined. The consciousness in these beings, these aspects of consciousness, needs to be refined. It needs to circulate and circulate back to the great galactic central sun. And that consciousness at that source level needs to understand all of this. It's like understanding why villains are villains, why victims are victims. Because these beings here are both villains and victims. And they propagate and perpetrate that system on humanity. They create an economy of villains and victims. They create social structures like, schooling and other cultural isms of power and control over others, and also domination over others. These are beings who need to get schooled. Get schooled is slang for come to their inner realizations. These are undigested particles of consciousness that need to be digested and resolved and flow. So, this is all about planetary ascension. That flow occurs at the same time that the planet is ascending. And that's at the same time that you are ascending as a personal individual cell on the planet. What does this look like and feel like behaviorally? And this is a pretty important question to learn to ask. When someone, whether they be a corporeal teacher or a non-corporeal spirit guide or teacher, tells you blah, blah thing is going to happen, a very important question to ask is, well, what does that look like behaviorally? It's like saying, feel this feeling or be this way, like trust or feel love or be this way. But what does that actually look like as an action word? So what does it actually look like to be clearing out this energy and to be ascending and to be changing. Well, one of the first things is emotional release, that these beings here are stuck pieces of emotional residue. First of all, it's not who we really are. It's a distortion. It's like a shadow. The shadow is another very good description for this realm, and that's another word that has been used in the mythology of this time and place, because shadows are projections of the actual object, right? Here's the actual object, and then here's the shadow that it casts when light falls upon it. This is the physical realm expressing non-physical or higher dimensional truth. That really this shadow realm only exists as a direct byproduct of the very bright light of consciousness, this divine light of consciousness that is shining in the world. And I've spoken with you many times in other lessons about, just on an abstract energetic level, you have two different types of energy. One is the linear energy flowing in this direction, and one is the circular energy that is flowing around in this direction within the chakra shape. Well, and of course there are many others. There's spiral energy, there's many other, forms of energy. But the point being that this is really an interplay between energy that is moving in different directions, or energy that is moving in different formats. So what does it look like to experience this planetary ascension? First of all, when these beings get cleared out, when we clear house, perforce, the connection, the divine connection to higher consciousness that for so many years was diminished almost entirely within humanity, now becomes strengthened again. This is your crown chakra, and this is the reconnection or reactivation of your individual crown chakra, your individual connection to the divine, the connection that was steadily eroded over the course of your whole entire existence as you learned language, as you were taught schooling, as you were given social instruction, all of these different things that took away from your crown chakra. You are now getting your crown chakra back. What does that feel like? What is that sense like? Well, what that means is you are no longer so busy using your yellow chakra to talk internally that you can't listen to what's coming from above. All of a sudden, you're able to turn off your yellow chakra for a few minutes, called meditation or longer, and listen effectively to the information that is coming from above. And eventually, when one is able to connect fully to the source, to the divine source, it is no longer necessary to eat physical food. But this is expert level. When you get back to that level, you will be fully ascended. So what will it look like? We will look like a society of beings who no longer masticate physical objects and place them in the cauldrons of our bellies in order to receive caloric energy. We connect directly to solar consciousness in order to achieve that energy. And what that also means is that you are no longer tied to a planet. And I have spoken about how Earth is a manifestation machine and a planet for giving birth. And what Earth gives birth to is consciousness. That when you achieve the capacity to ingest sunlight directly and solar consciousness directly, you no longer have to live on a physical planet with your feet touching the physical planet. You suddenly become free. You are free to travel in between planets. You are free to travel in between stars, all through space, in order to go to different places and have different experiences. And this is the next level, the next step for what is currently defined as humanity. When you leave the planet, you're not going to be leaving the planet in a rocket ship with a bunch of fuel burning in order to fuel your journey. You will leave the planet in a giant floating collection of consciousness. And you will feed one another on board of that living vessel with pure love. circulating love energy, all of the recordings that you have taken during your lifetime on Earth and your experiences of ingesting food will all come with you. That is essentially why you came to Earth or came into the physical realm. And of course, that will be part of the infinite journey that you're on this infinite journey timeline. Thank you so very much for tuning in to Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans on your infinite journey.